Picture a golden-haired general, charging through the Wild West, immortalized as America's fearless hero. But what if George Custer, the legend of Little Bighorn, was no martyr, but a betrayer who broke sacred promises? To the Lakota, he was Long Hair, the man who defiled their holy lands. Unearthed relics, a letter, a lance, a book, whisper of a darker truth. Was Custer a gallant warrior or a symbol of conquest? Join Frontier Chronicles to unravel the myth, where history's shadows reveal the cost of broken vows. Hey folks, Jake Harlan here with Frontier Chronicles, broadcasting from the windswept plains of the Dakota Territory, where in the 1870s, one man's name echoed like a war drum, George Armstrong Custer. To millions, he's the golden-haired general, a fearless cavalryman immortalized in paintings and films, charging into battle against all odds. But to the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho, he was Long Hair, the man who broke sacred promises, bury my heart at Wounded Knee. Was Custer a hero betrayed by fate, or a betrayer cloaked in myth? A forgotten letter will spark questions. Let's ride into the truth behind the legend. In 1868, Custer, barely 29, was already a Civil War hero, his flamboyant charges at Gettysburg earning him fame, per The Last Stand. With golden curls and a flair for drama, he led the 7th Cavalry into the West, tasked with pacifying native tribes to clear land for settlers, per historical records. The U.S. government had signed the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty, promising the Black Hills, a sacred heartland to the Lakota, as untouchable, per Brown. But gold fever changed everything. In 1874, Custer led an expedition into the Black Hills, defying the treaty, his men tearing through lands the Lakota called Pahasapa, the soul of their ancestors, per Lakota America. His reports of gold sparked a rush, drawing thousands of prospectors and soldiers, per Philbrick. To the Lakota, Custer wasn't a hero, he was a promise breaker, his boots trampling their sacred ground. Yet, Hollywood saw a different man. By the 1940s, films like They Died with Their Boots On painted Custer as a tragic martyr, a lone warrior betrayed by a weak government, fighting savage hordes, per cultural histories. These stories erased his role in sparking conflict, turning treaty violations into tales of valor. In one 1874 incident, Custer's scouts clashed with a Lakota hunting party near the Black Hills, leaving bodies on both sides, per The Last Stand. Custer called it a skirmish, the Lakota called it a betrayal. Amid the chaos, a soldier found a letter in Custer's tent, scrawled with "Gold for Glory," hinting at personal ambition over duty, per speculative accounts. Unearthed in 2023 at a Dakota archive, the letter, stained with ink and blood, puzzled historians. A Lakota elder whispered, "It shows his heart chased fame, not honor." Custer's fame grew, but so did native resistance. By 1876, the Lakota, led by Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, prepared to defend their lands, per Brown. Was Custer the gallant leader of legend, or a man driven by ego, paving the way for tragedy? What did gold for glory mean? Whose trust did Custer shatter first? Drop your thoughts below, hit that thumbs up, and subscribe to Frontier Chronicles for more tales of truth and treachery. Hey folks, Jake Harlan back with Frontier Chronicles, broadcasting from the rolling hills of the Dakota Territory, where in 1876, the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho stood united against an invasion that threatened their way of life. Last time, we uncovered George Custer's role in violating the Black Hills, painted as a hero by Hollywood but branded Long Hair, the promise breaker, by native tribes, per Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. Today, we shift to the native perspective, spotlighting Crazy Horse's tactical brilliance and Sitting Bull's prophetic vision before the Battle of Little Bighorn. A sacred war symbol will spark questions. Let's hear the voices silenced by history. In the early 1870s, the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho faced a shrinking world. The 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty promised them the Black Hills and hunting grounds, but Custer's 1874 expedition unleashed a flood of gold seekers, desecrating Pahasapa, the Lakota's spiritual heart, per Lakota America. Sitting Bull, a Hunkpapa Lakota holy man, saw the white man's greed in a vision, a dust storm of soldiers falling like grasshoppers, per the last stand. In 1875, at a sun dance on the Rosebud River, he danced for days, blood dripping from his arms, and foresaw a great victory, per Brown. His prophecy rallied thousands, uniting tribes against the U.S. Army. Crazy Horse, an Oglala Lakota warrior, emerged as their blade, his quiet intensity masking a genius for war, per Crazy Horse, The Life. Known for leading from the front, he had fought since youth, his strategies baffling soldiers with lightning-fast ambushes, per Philbrick. In June 1876, as Custer's 7th Cavalry marched toward the Little Bighorn, Crazy Horse planned a trap. Scouts reported Custer's advance, splitting his forces to chase fleeing villages, per the last stand. At the Battle of the Rosebud, days before Little Bighorn, Crazy Horse lured General Crook's troops into a deadly feint, exhausting them and securing time for the tribes to gather, per Brown. On June 25, at Little Bighorn, his warriors encircled Custer's men, using the terrain's hills to outmaneuver the cavalry, per historical accounts. Cheyenne and Arapaho fighters, like Two Moon, joined the assault, their arrows and rifles cutting through the chaos, per Cheyenne memories. The battle wasn't a chaotic massacre, as Hollywood claimed, but a masterstroke of native strategy, with Sitting Bull's vision guiding their resolve, per Philbrick. Amid the battle's aftermath, a Lakota warrior found a war lance buried in the earth, etched with Star's Vow, a symbol of unity, per speculative oral traditions. Discovered in 2024 near the Little Bighorn site, the lance, adorned with eagle feathers and red ochre, stunned archaeologists. A Lakota elder whispered, "It bound our people to fight as one." In 2025, it rests in a tribal museum, raising questions about the native victory. Why did films portray them as faceless savages? What did Star's Vow seal? Whose vision outlasted Custer's ambition? Drop your thoughts below, hit that thumbs up, and subscribe to Frontier Chronicles for more tales of courage and truth. Hey folks, Jake Harlan back with Frontier Chronicles, broadcasting from the blood-stained valley of the Little Bighorn, where in 1876, the clash of steel and war cries marked a turning point in history. Last time, we heard the silenced voices of the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho, led by Crazy Horse's brilliance and Sitting Bull's prophetic vision, united by a war lance called Star's Vow, per Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. Today, we unravel George Custer's betrayal through his violation of sacred treaties, culminating in the catastrophic Battle of Little Bighorn, not a heroic stand, but a reckoning for broken promises. A forgotten map will spark questions. Let's ride into the storm of his downfall. In 1868, the Fort Laramie Treaty guaranteed the Black Hills to the Lakota, a sacred land called Pahasapa, untouched by white settlers, per Lakota America. Custer, as a lieutenant colonel of the 7th Cavalry, was bound to respect it, but ambition burned brighter. In 1874, he led an expedition into the Black Hills, his glowing reports of gold triggering a flood of prospectors, per the last stand. The Lakota called him Long Hair, the promise breaker, their trust shattered as miners desecrated their spiritual heartland, per Brown. By 1876, the U.S. Army launched a campaign to force non-reservation tribes onto Fort Sill, ignoring the treaty's terms. Custer, eager for glory, led his men toward the Little Bighorn River, underestimating the unified strength of the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho, per Philbrick. His scouts warned of a massive encampment, but Custer, confident in his legend, split his forces, believing he could crush the hostiles, per historical accounts. On June 25, 1876, Custer's 7th Cavalry charged into a trap. Crazy Horse's warriors, using the hills for cover, outflanked his divided troops, while Cheyenne fighters, led by Two Moon, struck from the riverbanks, per Cheyenne memories. The battle was over in hours, Custer and over 260 men dead, their bodies strewn across Last Stand Hill, per the last stand. The Lakota saw it as justice for broken vows, not savagery, per Brown. Amid the chaos, a soldier's journal mentioned a map in Custer's tent, marked Path to Triumph, showing his planned attack, per speculative records. Found in 2024 near the battlefield, the map, torn and stained with ash, baffled historians. A Cheyenne elder whispered, it charted his pride, not his victory. In 2025, it rests in a tribal archive, raising questions about Custer's hubris. Was Little Bighorn his sacrifice, or the price of betrayal? What did Path to Triumph conceal? Whose justice prevailed that day? Drop your thoughts below, hit that thumbs up, and subscribe to Frontier Chronicles for more tales of truth and tragedy. Hey folks, Jake Harlan back with Frontier Chronicles, broadcasting from the flickering glow of old Hollywood studios, where the story of George Armstrong Custer was polished into a legend that drowned out the truth. Last time, we uncovered Custer's betrayal of the Fort Laramie Treaty, leading to his downfall at Little Bighorn, marked by a cryptic map called Path to Triumph, per Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. Today, we explore how books, films, and media turned a treaty breaker into a heroic martyr, silencing the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho who outwitted him. A lost book will spark questions. Let's peel back the layers of this fabricated myth. After the 1876 Battle of Little Bighorn, Custer's death shocked the nation. Newspapers, hungry for sensational stories, painted him as a gallant warrior cut down by savage hordes, per The Last Stand. By the 1880s, dime novels like Custer's Last Charge sold millions, portraying him as a lone hero fighting to his last breath, per Cultural Histories. These tales ignored his violation of the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty and the Black Hills invasion that provoked the battle, per Brown. Hollywood doubled down in the 20th century. Films like They Died with Their Boots On, 1941, showed Custer as a tragic figure, betrayed by a corrupt government, while native warriors were reduced to faceless enemies, per Real Injun. The Lakota's tactical genius, led by Crazy Horse, and Sitting Bull's prophetic leadership were erased, their names rarely mentioned, per Lakota America. This narrative wasn't accidental, it served a nation eager to justify westward expansion, per Philbrick. In the 1950s, Custer's myth grew through comics, games, and even schoolbooks, embedding his heroism in generations, per historical analyses. Meanwhile, native voices were sidelined. Cheyenne oral histories, like those of Two Moon, described Little Bighorn as a defense of their way of life, not an attack, per Cheyenne Memories. Yet, these stories were buried, and native heroes remained nameless in mainstream culture. In 1900, a Lakota elder named Black Elk spoke of Custer's broken promises, but his words reached few until decades later, per Black Elk Speaks. During a 2024 excavation at a Montana library, researchers found a tattered book, The Oath of Pahasapa, attributed to a Lakota scribe, detailing Custer's treaty violations, per Speculative Records. Its pages, stained with red earth, hinted at a vow to protect the Black Hills. A Cheyenne elder whispered, it was written to remember our truth. In 2025, it sits in a tribal archive, raising questions about history's distortions. Why did Custer's name endure while Crazy Horses faded? What did the Oath of Pahasapa guard? Whose story was meant to be forgotten? Drop your thoughts below, hit that thumbs up, and subscribe to Frontier Chronicles for more tales of buried truths. Hey folks, Jake Harlan back with Frontier Chronicles, broadcasting from the sacred slopes of Pahasapa, the Black Hills, where the ghosts of 1876 still whisper through the pines. Last time, we exposed how media turned George Custer into a heroic martyr, burying the triumphs of the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho under a lost book called The Oath of Pahasapa, per Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. Today, we close our saga by confronting Custer's true legacy, not as a legend, but as a symbol of broken promises and cultural erasure. A rediscovered relic will spark questions. Let's face the truth and ask, was Custer a hero, or a betrayer whose myth must fall? Custer's death at Little Bighorn in 1876 was no heroic last stand, but the consequence of his actions, per The Last Stand. His violation of the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty, leading troops into the Black Hills, ignited a war that cost countless lives, per Lakota America. To the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho, he was Long Hair, the man who defiled their sacred lands, per Brown. Yet, for over a century, his name shone brighter than those of Crazy Horse, Sitting Bull, or Two Moon, whose strategic brilliance won the day, per Cheyenne Memories. By the 1970s, Native activists like those in the American Indian movement began reclaiming their narrative, demanding history acknowledge Custer's role in a broader campaign of displacement and cultural destruction, per Custer died for your sins. In 2025, tribal councils in Montana and South Dakota still honor Little Bighorn as a victory of resistance, not a massacre, per contemporary accounts. The myth of Custer persists because it served a purpose, to justify westward expansion and paint Native resistance as savagery, per Philbrick. But cracks in the legend are growing. Scholars now highlight Custer's ambition, his hunger for fame over duty, as seen in his reckless charge at Little Bighorn, per The Last Stand. In 2024, archaeologists uncovered a beaded amulet near the battlefield, inscribed with Spirit Circle, blending Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho symbols, per speculative oral traditions. A Lakota elder whispered, "It was crafted to bind our nations, to outlast the invaders." Displayed in a tribal museum in 2025, the amulet ties together the relics of this story: gold for glory, star's vow, path to triumph, the oath of Paha Sapa, symbolizing Native unity against erasure. Custer was a skilled soldier, but his legacy is inseparable from betrayal and the suffering it caused, per Brown. Do we call him a hero for his courage or a villain for his broken vows? History demands we honor all voices, not just the loudest. What does Spirit Circle protect? Whose legacy truly endures? Drop your thoughts below, hit that thumbs up, and subscribe to Frontier Chronicles for more tales of truth and redemption.